Welcome, or should I say welcome back to the Grand Teton Music Festival's Backstage Pass, your once a month invitation to gather everyone who loves and supports this festival, reconnecting our musicians, our friends, our supporters, and welcoming anyone who's drawn to be part of our GTMF community. So this is season 2, and we're creating this platform in alliance with GTMF's new On Location series, which features our musicians performing in their home cities each month. You can watch the On Location concerts by going to our webpage or finding us on social media, and then joining us a week later, which is today, to have a backstage pass experience of getting to know those musicians and of just hanging out with us. My name is Eva Capoletti Chow. I'm a violinist, and I have been coming out to Jackson Hole, except for last summer, for almost 20 years.
And my name is Jerry Ho. I'm the associate conductor for the Grand Teton Music Festival, and I've been with the festival for, I guess, on location for 3 years, off location, 1 more year in addition to that. And of course, we're here with Mike Richards, who is helping us with all things technical, logistical, and many other things. Welcome, Mike.
Thanks, guys. It's so good to be back after a couple of months and after 10 crazy weeks. So have a good time. Really excited to hear from our guests.
It's great to see you, Eva.
I know. It's so surreal watching you do your part, because I think there's just 3 things that are coming to mind. First, that I can't believe how much time has passed, and also how just crazy that we did this every week for 10 weeks once we got an idea across. And so that was just a whirlwind. And now here we are back by popular demand. And also because we feel it's like the why of this is to support our musicians at this stage of where we are with this whole pandemic pause, is the way that I'm calling it. So wanting to check in with you first, because I feel like I haven't really seen you in a while. Last time we were get together doing this, I remember that Remy, your son, you're like, is he 3, 4?
3.5 now.
3.5. And he came up and he was right there and you said, and this is my full-time job during this pandemic. So so that was then, and this is now. And I know that you are involved in so many things. I see that you're the assistant conductor down in Atlanta, and so you're going back and forth for that. And you're still teaching at Rice in Houston. And how are you? Yeah, like fill me in. How are you managing all of this?
Well, it's we have a great support system, lots of good friends, family to sort of our pod has grown a little bit to make it all possible. And certainly it's been, I guess, how long? 2 months, 3 months since our last episode.
We finished August 8th, right? Because that was
so that's right. And it's, I mean, it's yeah, the world has changed quite a bit already in that time. I mean, the first season 1 seems like a lifetime ago, but it has been really busy. I've started up as associate conductor here in Atlanta with Atlanta Symphony, and that's been very busy. I'm still teaching at Rice, as you said, and getting a chance to work with the students. And we've been able to do concerts there. I had a big opera at the beginning of the school year that really took up a lot of time. So it's been great to have a chance to continue making music and keeping music alive, which is such an important thing right now.
Yeah,
and so I'm very grateful for the opportunities to do that. And I know for you, since we last talked, you've been really busy as well on multiple things. You are now a certified life coach. You have your own program called Classical Conversations, where you're talking with a lot of musicians and helping them form a community during this pandemic, sort of being connected with each other.
Yeah, when we were doing those 10 weeks, I was still studying, doing the program for this life coaching. And so that's finished. And so now I'm certified, and I'm starting this process of working with musicians. Those are my people to serve, are the people that we know so well. And that it's such an honor actually to have these skills and to be able to show up in this way in support of the people. So with Classical Conversations as well, but also just being able to step in this way with students and just all of that. And then, yes, it's really strange. I feel like what happened is that before this felt like new, this crazy time, and now something happened. Maybe it was in August or maybe September when school started up again, where this became what we need to function in. And that was the moment where I feel like a lot of us then said, okay, well, how am I going to play? How am I going to do the things that are important? You know, how am I going to be able to function? And why I think that's interesting, especially as we're bringing on our guest for today from New York, is because that's showing up differently in the different orchestras all around the country. And so I'm really interested to bring our guest forward and to begin this conversation of what does now look like, even though I don't know if it's the new normal. I don't know if there's going to be a normal for a while, but just how are they able to engage in the ways that they are during this time?
Yeah, absolutely. It's basically what we have to live with right now. Well, I mean, I think that's a great way to bring on our guest and really have it for us to hear from them. Great. So, Mike, if you could bring on our guests, we have 4 of the musicians who recently played on the GTMF On Location New York concert. Please welcome our wonderful guests.
Press the audience clapping button here. Welcome, everybody. I'm so glad to see you. I'm just going to welcome you into this conversation because it's neither the old normal, whether or not there's ever going to be a new normal to this. And so being in alliance with these on location series, I really want to know what's happening in New York. What's the feel there? What's going on? What's possible? What's not? Just anyone who wants to start in this conversation, you have the information that many of us want to know.
I think it's evolving, and there are 2 different levels. There's the level of what we all read about in the media, and then there's also the level of just what precautions you decide to take for yourself and what your level of comfort will allow. So there's always kind of 2 levels at play there. There's of course, the public response and the information that we have from public officials, which is terrific. And then there are decisions that we all have to make for ourselves or for those near to us to keep everybody safe.
Yeah.
Yeah, we've had, I think, are we the only ones in this group that have 2 school-age children? So that kind of adds a new level. I mean, Eva, you do too, but I'm saying like in New York City.
New York,
yeah.
Right. And is it all online for them, or are you?
So what happened was that they had started with a hybrid model. And then on this Wednesday, they just said, okay, everybody's going remote.
Yeah.
So that, it's, I know it's really hard because, this is the largest school system in the country. I think it maybe, and we have, the guy running it actually came from Houston, where I think Ling Ling is now. But it's been kind of a mess because it's such a big school system. So that adds yet another element of just like, okay, what's going on?
Yeah. Mary, what is New York like for you? Like, what are the things that are in play right now most prominently in the way that you're navigating your days?
Well, I'm riding my bike a lot. That's how I get around. I feel really thankful that we have a governor and public officials that take this really seriously and are really clear about what we should do and what we shouldn't do. And I agree with Paolo that there's this, okay, then you make that decision on your own. Okay, so how are you going to deal with this? Are you going to just take the subway or not take the subway? I try to ride my bike. I find, practicing is more like a meditation than it usually is. And I have 2 grown sons, and they're both, in their early 20s, and one's 24 and 19, and they're both living at home, which is really a blessing, but also, and I know it's also going to be the last time they're going to be at home like this. So I'm enjoying that part of it too. Yeah.
Yeah. So did you ride your bike to the on location performance and all that, or was that?
I think we drove, didn't we, Mary? Didn't we drive?
Well, yeah, Bruno drove me home, and that day, no, you know what? That morning, you guys were caught in traffic.
Oh, right. Yeah.
And so I took the subway there that morning. But yeah, usually I'm riding around like the Wicked Witch of the West with my viola on my back.
With your viola on your back.
Yeah. Yeah.
Wow. Ling Ling, what about you?
I was riding my bike a lot also when I was in New York. So I left right after our recording, actually. I went and camp quarantined in Marfa and Big Bend, tested negative, and finally visited my parents for the first time in uh, 6 or 7 months. But in all of that time, since the pandemic really hit, I had only had 2 freelancing jobs. So it was looking really, really bad for the freelancing scene, as well as seeing all of our beloved institutions of music, having all of them shut down essentially. But it's been really amazing to see how adaptable the city is. As I was leaving, there were more opportunities opening up for outdoor concerts, differently spaced things. It was really exciting, ingenuity, and like what we will do to keep expressing and doing the things we love.
I think, at least from our personal perspective of the Met Orchestra, it's been very difficult. Just seeing the opera closed, and every time, I mean, it's almost to the extent where I still can't listen to opera because it makes me sad, that
it's very painful.
It's, that we're not in there playing for our audiences and sharing this music that's just, all of it is so spectacular. We need to expand our horizons. We need to figure out how to make it possible.
Well, I do notice in New York, and probably we all have this experience, is that the larger the institution, the more they are paralyzed at this time.
Yeah.
And I think that what's happening now has its positive aspects. And I think it makes, and whether or not our institution is going to be flexible enough to think outside that box, that's still a question. But I would say that as Met Orchestra musicians, we've been really trying to get out there in our community in ways that make sense on a smaller scale during this time. Like the people in assisted living in old folks' homes across the country have basically been in solitary confinement during this time. It's horrific, and basically a lot of people are not thinking about this. And so we've tried to bring ourselves in virtually to serve people, just one-on-one visits and things like that. And that's an ongoing thing. And there's this possibility that our Beethoven trio, thanks to the generosity of Grand Teton Music Festival, will be streamed on December 11th during a virtual supper at a city-subsidized assisted living place on the east side of Manhattan. And so we're really excited about things like that. And I think we're all trying to be more flexible than our institution is being right now. And so that could lead to positive things. Mm-hmm. Not sure yet where it will go, but that's my take on it.
Because the institutions cannot be that flexible, what I'm seeing is a lot more interactions between musicians talking to musicians. People are sharing master classes with students across the country now because you can. There's in a way, when we were just, okay, the institution's got our backs and we're doing this, we're sort of living our lives. And now there's this transference because there's no one else doing it, where we're recognizing the power of our own community to create outside of what we were used to creating.
We as musicians, I realize more now than I ever realized before, and it's always been obvious, but it just comes home, that we are about sharing what we do. That is what it's about. And when I'm practicing and it turns into kind of a meditation instead of a regular practice session, that's what's missing, is that I'm not working toward, in the near future, really sharing my talents with people. And that breaks my heart. but it also brings into the forefront how important it is for us to share what we do.
Yeah.
So it's been amazing to see like freelancing by nature and musicians in general, just how we've been raised to work as hard as we have. You know, we're scrappy, we're hungry, and we're really adaptable. And that has been so apparent, especially in the city. It has been devastating to see these bigger institutions kind of fail to support and adapt to the musicians' needs and desires to share as much as they would like and as much as they're capable. But it's an exciting time because so many people in New York are doing that. But you know, now things have reverted to a more dangerous situation there. So it's kind of heartbreaking not to be there. I'm not sure why. I'm happy to be with my parents, but I don't know. It was the feeling of solidarity in the city when everything was really bad in March and April is something I'll never forget, and I feel so tied to the place in a similar way. Like, you know, I couldn't necessarily play for audiences, but I played on you know, for my neighbors, and there are just so many small kindnesses that I found people doing and giving to each other. And it was like a whole city of chamber music in a way. It was really, yeah, I mean, an unforgettable time for everyone in so many bad and surprisingly good ways, because humans are great.
If there was one thing that you wish, when you're sort of speaking to the larger public, that you wish they would know, what would it be about this time, your experience of this time?
One thing that the layperson, I think, will not encounter and understand is what it's like to lose one's voice, in the terms that Mary was talking about, where you have a job to communicate to an audience and to communicate with others to that audience, and where that has been put on pause, we'll say, elegantly, as you do. I do two things. I play harpsichord in concert, of course, with various groups and with the New York Philharmonic and with Orpheus Chamber Orchestra, and all that, of course, is on pause. The other thing that I do is that I'm the organist and choir master here at St. Bartholomew's, and singers have it really bad. They don't have a situation that looks like it'll be great in a few months until a vaccine is found. And to get back to what I don't think the layperson will understand, whether it's for singers or for instrumentalists, what it is like to have your life's work halted, and your life's, more importantly, your life's purpose and your calling halted. Those two things, yeah, to be put on pause, and then to also to understand that there's a lot more to it than merely our entertaining each other. Yes. There's a lot more at stake than that.
We've lost our livelihoods and our life's work.
What we offer is essential to understanding the human condition and essential to relating to each other, that the art that we make isn't an ornament to our lives, but is something that helps each of us find a better way forward, whatever it may be for anyone's individual circumstance.
I don't know. I think Paolo kind of said it all.
Sorry, it wasn't a particularly short answer, pardon me.
No, but I mean, those two things, it's just really hard to. I think for me, it just to build on that, it's just feeling like we need to prove what we do is important to society. You know, just as important. I mean, of course, you know, we can't, I don't mean to belittle anyone else, or what, you know, first responders have done, what healthcare workers have done, but music, art, culture is, you know, essential.
That paradigm is a very American paradigm, and it's not the same in places like Germany, where they're like, one of the first things they did was pass a pandemic assistance bill that helped musicians and artists. And it made me question my own supposition, like, oh, well, there's other things that are so much more important than this. You know what? This is important too. And not only am I thirsty, as like unbelievably thirsty to express what I've been trained to express and what I've chosen, the way I've chosen to express it, and use that but I also feel like it's important and it deserves people's attention in a way that we eschew, unfortunately.
I think there isn't anyone we know that isn't spending a considerable amount of time in quarantine and in the pandemic, that isn't doing a lot more than just whiling away the time with the arts and with the performing arts specifically, that actually they're engaging and learning and staying alive with something that sometimes our governmental systems classify as optional, when the reality is that it's not optional to any of us, to any single person we know in our families and friends, that all of us are keeping active with the arts absolutely all the time, whether it's at the level of entertainment or whether it's at something perhaps deeper than that.
It's not an easy life to be a musician, and it certainly takes an amount of privilege to get to where we are. But it's not an easy life, and we wouldn't choose it if it was totally, inessential, as we've been deemed in a lot of ways. I worry that, there are all these statistics about people who are experiencing this in the last 2 years of high school, and how much loss of income they're going to have over their entire lifetime. It's like, tens of thousands of dollars, like entire livelihoods will be lost because of this pause in their education in high school. And I worry that the way that our government and, just the way America sometimes doesn't prioritize the arts and culture the way that Europe does will have ramifications that we will only really know later on. And to audiences, I would just say that we miss you and we need you and we exist for you.
And speaking of audience, Ling, I just want to give just draw attention to that we have an audience here, as Mary was saying, to share in this experience, to hear your words, as we are all here to communicate. They're here to listen to what your experience is. And so we have Charlie Duvall, we have Chris Millard, Dave Williamson, we have our new CEO, Emma, we have Linda Hurwitz, we have Nancy Hoffman and Pam Jones. So all of you, we're grateful for you being here to be part of season 2 and hear from these musicians. As organist and choir master of St. Bartholomew's, you were speaking about how hard it is for singers right now. And of course, not only as choirs, but opera, are the choirs able to perform at all for anyone, or?
Only as cantors, singing singly and recorded and sent out via a live stream or pre-recording. And then we've shifted to do all pre-recorded choir, which is often called virtual choir. I dare say, I'm not sure there's anything entirely virtual about it, whether there's any virtue in calling it virtual, but in any case, it's all pre-recorded choral music that we've shifted to. There's a couple things that we've transitioned to here where we can't really have a public congregation safely. And so everything is done via live stream with a few people in the building. The organ playing happens live, and then the choral music happens pre-recorded.
I see. Well, we have some clips of your choir.
I record a guide for the choir, and I make a kind of a guide video that has this particular piece is accompanied that we're going to hear. It's the Te Deum in B flat, the first few seconds of it, by Charles Villiers Stanford, who's a 19th century Dublin-born composer. He taught at the Royal College of Music, and he taught an entire generation of composers we all know in London. The choir records their parts singly at home, and then they're edited separately, video and audio, and then brought back together in the format that you're going to hear now.
Oh
choir records from home. Those are all pro singers. And so what I've tried to figure out a way to do is to save the livelihood, or some small portion of it, let me be frank, some small portion of their livelihood, by continuing to be able to offer new choral music every single week, and coming up through the holiday season, lots and lots of music offered that way. And so they still do some singing through they have the unenviable, I can't say it enough, unenviable task of recording themselves completely alone at home in whatever acoustic, and then sending it to their boss. And so I constantly reassuring them, telling them they sound great, not to worry, and that I love them and all that good stuff. And so it all gets woven together thanks to technology. And those familiar faces, to the people who are used to hearing them sing live, mean a lot. And the familiar voices mean a lot to folks because of our regular attendees here.
For those of us watching the program, how can we access more of the performances? Is it on the YouTube page, or is it on the St. Bartholomew's website?
All of the above. So the website is St. Bart's, stbarts.org. And then if you Google it, there's a Facebook page, of course, and a YouTube channel. And both have playlists where you can hear one choir or organ video after another after another. The handle is St. Bart's NYC for all of those things.
Fantastic. One of our, someone from the audience, Linda Hurwitz, one of our violinists from the Virginia Symphony.
Hi, Linda, I miss you. I need to say hi to Linda.
She said that was so touching to see them listening together. And it's just, wow, Paolo, what a sound. And so please tune in to hear more from the wonderful choir. And of course, Paolo's playing. I just wanted to move over to Kari and Mary just to talk about what the Met musicians have been doing.
So as most of you know, the Met Orchestra was furloughed in April, and we will be until at least September of 2021. We kind of resurrected our 501c3, our nonprofit organization, and we are called the Met Orchestra Musicians, and we are fundraising. I never thought I'd be in this position to have to do this, and I think we kind of touched on this earlier, that, you know, like Ling Ling said, you know, freelancers are really good at kind of, you know, swimming upstream, and you know, those of us who got a job pretty, you know, early out of school, and you know, we haven't had to work on that part as much, and so this is all very new to us. We have this 501c3. It benefits not just the orchestra musicians, but many members of our associate pool, which is our subs, some of our music staff, who are some of the people that, you know, rehearsal pianists, prompters, assistant conductors, librarians in the orchestra. So, and some of these people are already also losing their health insurance too. So there's a lot that we're trying to help with. Why are we doing this? Okay, so to raise money for our musicians, but also to do these things that we talked about earlier, you know, making sure how can we get out there? How can we let our public know that we miss them? How can we play? And on Sunday, we have our first of what hopefully will be an ongoing series called the Met Orchestra Spotlight. And we have recorded a concert. It's probably about 45 minutes long, and Matthew Polenzani, who's a wonderful, amazing Met opera tenor, will be hosting the concert. And you can purchase tickets at our website, and you can also look at the website to see all of the other stuff we've been doing. I mentioned the science study. We just did some. There was a big national initiative called Play for the Vote, and we participated in that. We've done some concerts for health workers around the city. And we hope to provide more playing, I think, is really what we want to be doing, of course. And so trying to come up with ideas of how to share with others.
Absolutely. And speaking of the events that you've been holding, we have a clip of a quartet playing some Mozart. I think it also has you playing as well as Bruno. This is playing for first responders. Mike, would you Could you please play that clip?
So the way that worked, it's kind of cool, is that the hospital had a lottery that you could enter. And then I think, it was such a small space that there were maybe 10 people that won the lottery and that got to come to the, to the afternoon little concert. So.
Wow, that's amazing. Ling, I know that you have been playing for, last thing I heard about you playing for was for here in Houston. Well, I'm not in Houston, but there in Houston for the expansion of I-45, and it was to sort of as an activist, to draw awareness to what was going on there. I know that sort of music as social activism is really important to you and just various causes. And so I didn't know if you want to speak about that little project and other projects that you're working on right now.
This was a grassroots organization that I had been following on my social media for a while, and some of our great friends that we have in common started this kind of concert series to raise awareness for the fact that we don't need more highways in Texas. All the statistics show that it would just make commuting actually more difficult, would get rid of, thousands more homes. It's just a terrible idea, and electric cars are going to be the future, and that's going to be as big a shift as why do you want to build carriages when cars have just been invented for horses? It's just not a good time for the highway guys, and it's just such an expensive project, and they should be putting this towards expansion of light rail, all of these other things that would actually help the majority of people living here. So it was really great to be a part of that, and I'm not playing at the next few, but I'm really excited to get out there and support the musicians who are playing. It was my first time playing for a live audience since probably March. It was so crazy. I also forgot how difficult it is to play outside. My fingers were frozen when I started. I was like, wow. But that's kind of what I miss about performing too. You never know what weird thing is gonna feel terrible. And it's a thrill.
That's a good way to say that.
It's thrilling.
It's going to feel terrible.
I love that. Yeah.
You might suddenly have to pee as soon as you sit down. There's so many little anxieties that I've really missed. But is the music gonna stay on the stand? Love that game. I joined an orchestra, which has been a totally virtual orchestra. I have no idea how many months ago, because time is not a real thing to me anymore, but it's called Polaris, and it's all about equity and kind of having a good representation of actually the people who are in the United States in the orchestra. So it strives to be comprised of more people of color and to play more people of color, Black people. So I'm excited to be part of that. Another thing that I would love for audiences to know that while we're on pause, this is our moment to demand that our institutions change with us. This is our time to say that we're willing to do this with or without you. I am so inspired by what the Met Opera musicians are doing. It sounds like you're performing everywhere. It sounds like you're really, you're so scrappy and hungry, and the way that you are so looking to serve your community is just really inspiring and beautiful. And that's I think a really beautiful moment for now. We're having a reckoning of who's playing classical music, who's allowed to play classical music, and also just all of the systems are being challenged that actually really need to be challenged. So it's also an exciting time, even though it's devastating.
I think classical music inspires a certain kind of connection that is it's just a very human need during this crisis. There's a certain kind of emotional and human connection that's there. And I was actually just listening to a podcast that people are very surprised how many people are streaming and really thirsty to hear classical music. They didn't expect it to be the numbers that it is.
If I can transition us, Jerry, if you're good with this, into our next segment for just a little bit. So we have like a kind of game segment, a little bit of a lightened segment. And so what we're going to try with you guys for the first time, so let's see how this goes, is I have a bunch of quotes and about music. And I don't know, if you guys had buzzers, I would make you do the buzzer to see who could get this fastest. But I'm going to speak a quote, the inspiration from music, from people, and see who can tell me who they think said the quote. Does that sound good? You guys willing to try? Willing to try?
Willing to be totally wrong. Sure, go for
Yeah, yeah.
Excellent.
Yeah.
Mike can edit anything out, so don't worry.
That's right.
We're amongst friends here.
Yeah.
I'll start off kind of easy. The music is not in the notes, but in the silence between.
Oh, I just heard that
I've
quote
heard
too.
that before.
I know. It's when we heard. Well, you could guess who's one of like the very top people that you could just even guess. Just
Yeah, see?
it.
Bernstein.
no B.
Beethoven, actually.
Nope. It starts with M.
Mozart.
Da 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 da. Kari
Oh,
gets the
yippee.
one. All right, with just a little bit of help.
Oh, God.
Okay, second one. This is
Wait, that was the easy one. Okay.
that was the
Yeah.
easy one. And here's a
Oh,
little
we're in
hint.
trouble.
Listen for the hint. Kari might know this one too. What does Kari play? Music is the divine way to tell beautiful, poetic things to the heart.
Pablo Casals.
Ah, Kari twice!
Okay, that was a big hint. No, but it sounds
Okay,
like
yeah.
him too.
Yeah,
So
totally.
that's not fair, really, if you think about it. Music is a higher revelation than all wisdom and philosophy. Music is the electrical soil in which the spirit lives, thinks, and invents.
Beethoven.
Ta-da, Mary! Excellent. I think three's good. Do you think that's that's a good little slot of fun in the midst of all of this? So thank you for playing.
That's a great quote, though. Electrical soil.
Electrical
I mean,
soil.
wow.
Mm,
Yeah. I was thinking like George Bernard Shaw or something. I mean,
yeah.
So we have a couple of questions here from the chat. And the first one is actually takes us into our next topic that we would love to talk about, which is your performance together for GTMF on Location. Pam asked that, how did you plan and practice for GTMF on Location in New York? And she said it was terrific. So they really loved the show.
Well, Kari and Bruno and me are all neighbors. So that
Bruno
was
is my very close neighbor.
yeah. But so it was easy. We had to figure out how comfortable we are. They had to figure out how comfortable they would be with me in their living room. We all wore masks. I have to wear reading glasses when I play, and my glasses kept fogging up. And I think we also had just gotten that COVID test, so
We left the window open, and our living room is kind of, we could all fit fairly spaciously. And
In terms of the way the concert came together, there's sort of two levels. There's the operations and practical stuff, and then there's what we played and why. The operations and practical stuff Mary already talked about a little bit, that we all took COVID tests and made sure that everybody was in the clear before getting together in any way to rehearse. On March 15th, the last Sunday before COVID really shut everything down in New York City, Ling Ling and I were actually supposed to play together here. There was a program of music that was going to be for choir and chamber orchestra that was going to be repertoire by Handel and Haydn. And that all got put on hold. And now several months later, when Richard Brown and the other Grand Teton Music Festival organizers were figuring out, well, with a number of musicians, festival musicians living in New York, what venue could there be for New York? And so St. Bartholomew's came up as an idea, and hence the addition of the harpsichord and all of that. In terms of when we practiced and when things got put together, Ling Ling and I rehearsed. The recording was a Tuesday, and we all rehearsed basically. Ling Ling and I rehearsed on Sunday night, and then I rehearsed with Joel Noyes, who played a Bach Gamba Sonata on Monday, and then the rest of the rehearsing was simply done on Tuesday morning before we recorded it here on site, on location, in quotes. In terms of what pieces got played, I proposed the Gamba Sonata sheepishly, thinking, well, I don't know if that'll ever happen. And Joel very enthusiastically wanted to play it. It's a piece I very much wanted to play. All of that I would dial up even more. I even more sheepishly proposed the idea of doing Tonya Koh's Still Life Crumbles, thinking that, well, if anybody wants to do it, it's probably Ling Ling. And she was game, and it's a piece I have very much wanted to learn and to do. And Tonya Koh is a terrific composer. And so it's the first time that I got to play it. I think the only other thing that I definitely don't want to forget to say is how profoundly grateful I am to be able to make music with these folks specifically, but also for the opportunity to do so from the festival. First playing, I think any of us has really done since March, at least of chamber music, for speaking for myself and maybe for some others. I think Joel was saying the same. And I have so much gratitude for this opportunity to do so under these circumstances. It's been
I would second that.
It's fabulous. Yeah, I was going to ask Paolo if you had a chance to play with anyone up until this point.
It's only been one-on-one singer and organ, leading some things that are very low key, nothing like the Bach, the Vivaldi, the Tonya Koh. The other piece I should say something about is that the concept of performing something that was related to Veterans Day because of the timing, and also for the other reasons that Kari explains on the video as to why an elegy was played by an elegy by Elgar was played, is that idea came from the festival. And if I'm not mistaken, the specific piece was proposed by Sir Donald, Maestro Donald Runnicles, who knew of that specific piece, and was played beautifully by the quintet.
Ling Ling, it was fantastic to hear you play Tonya's music. I don't know if have you met her before?
Oh, I have not met her.
Okay.
I had not worked with her. I had not heard of this piece. I've only played with harpsichord once before. I was really nervous because I was like, do I even know how to play with people anymore? I was like in my apartment, like testing how fast I could respond to hearing things. I was really afraid that I lost, chamber music chops, things like that. And I didn't realize until I was in the church how still I've gotten. Nice.
Hi, Bruno.
You're a little early.
Did you bring enough for everyone, Bruno?
Sorry, Ling Ling. He's a little early.
My bartender has not arrived for whatever reason. But it was so fun. What a name, Still Life Crumbles. That was all of our lives. But it was so fun to play something unfamiliar and to sink my teeth into it. I started practicing really early because I was just so excited. I don't know if I've ever been this prepared for.
I want to add that it ended up being a happy coincidence that I proposed this particular modern piece because when I mentioned it to Richard, he reminded me, and this brings us to a point that Ling Ling made earlier, that the festival is very intentionally pursuing the idea of programming music by minorities, people of color, and so on and so forth. And that in this case ended up being incidental. It's an awesome piece that I thought no one's going to say yes, so let me propose it. And everyone very enthusiastically said yes. And as far as we can tell, the audience watched it from beginning to end. So it's a great piece.
Yeah, bravo to you guys. It was beautiful.
That's very kind.
That's wonderful. Yeah, Linda was wondering if you could tell us give us just a little bit more about the piece.
Instead of playing upon the obvious differences in the sound worlds of the harpsichord and the violin, that instead she wanted to find some sort of commonality and the conjunction of the two instruments. And that's some of what she works with in the piece. A lot of the figures are in fact motives that disintegrate or that crumble or that pull apart. And the end of her wonderful program note also in a way kind of like disintegrates itself. The program note itself does, where she talks about the crackling and the unpredictable crackling of autumn leaves, which also made it a perfect piece for the season in which we were playing it. Fun to put together. It's about 7 minutes long. There's not a whole lot of extended techniques or anything like that, but it's just a wonderful new piece for the repertoire. It's from 2012. She teaches in London, having graduated Cornell with a PhD, and before that Eastman in Indiana, if I'm remembering correctly. And she's also the winner of a Guggenheim Fellowship in 2018.
No, Tony is a friend. I knew her from my time at Eastman, so I was thrilled.
Oh, great!
I was thrilled to see her piece, and I thought it was a fantastic choice.
Oh, I should let you talk about it. Oh, that's great.
No.
The small world of musicians.
The small world, isn't it? I know that we were thinking about playing a little bit of that. Do you guys still want to hear a little bit of it? Mike?
Yeah, you sound great.
Bravo. It was such a fantastic program, and hearing all of you play, I know that one thing that when we had Backstage Pass this summer was just none of us could really have a chance to play together at all. And so having this new series on location and hearing all of you and our GTMF family be able to start playing music together again is really wonderful. And it's been, I know that we've already gotten a lot of views for the concert. And one thing that happened there in Jackson was Legacy Lodge, who is a fervent supporter of the festival. I think 14, I think that's what Mike was telling me, 14 of the members there were watching. And Mike, did you have a photo that you want to share with us? So this was when they were watching your concert streamed.
That's so great. Nice. That's the Vivaldi they're watching. Oh, love it.
Well, I think it's about that time to wrap up.
Exactly. Thank you all for wanting to have this, for being willing to be a part of it. You really this is sort of off script, but you really reignited, for at least me, and I think for Jerry and Mike as well, the wish to do this, to create another Backstage Pass, to bring us all back together again with the beginnings of music. So thank you for being a part of this. Thank you for the beautiful, inspiring music and the things that you bring to the table in this conversation. I'm really grateful to get to know you, Paolo, and Mary. It's nice to meet you. And this is just the beginnings of, I guess, the more.
Yep.
See where that goes from there.
Yeah. We will have 4 more episodes of GTMF on location. And our next one will be in December 10th, coming from Chicago. We'll have a brass quintet with festival musicians, including Barbara Butler, Gail Williams, and Mick Mulcahy. And they'll be joined by a couple of members from the Chicago Symphony Orchestra. So please tune in for that.
For those of you who want to be a part of how this series really works, watch that, get to know them musically, and then come be with us for the behind the scenes conversations and getting to know the musicians.
Thank you.
And a
Eva
huge
Jerry,
thank you to the festival.
Yep.
Thank you all so much.
Oh, thank you guys for being part of this. It's so wonderful to see all of you. And of course, it was such a pleasure to hear you play.